The stars looked different from the bridge of the Harmony's edge. Commander Tae-min stood before the large viewing window, watching the strange patterns of light that marked the edge of known space. His ship was beautiful in the way only Valari vessels could be. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, following the rhythm of the ship's living systems. Organic conduits carried energy through the crystalline hull, like blood through veins. Tae-min had been chosen for this mission because he was careful. The Galactic Council needed someone who would not make mistakes when meeting new species. The humans were still unknown to most of the galaxy. Some traders spoke of them in whispers, but no official contact had been made. "Commander," called his science officer, a young Valari named Hyejin. "We are ready to drop out of hyperspace." "Do it," Tae-min said. The ship shuddered as it left the strange realm between stars. Space returned to normal around them, filled with the cold light of distant suns. Ahead lay the human colony world they called New Busan. Tae-min expected to see the usual signs of a young civilization, maybe some orbital stations, perhaps a few patrol ships. What he saw instead made his 4 hearts skip beats. Floating in space like a dark moon was something that should not exist. The human ship was massive beyond belief. 15 kilometers long, it hung in the void like a piece of the night sky that had been carved into the shape of war. Its hull was black metal, covered in weapons that looked hungry even when silent. Rows of windows glowed with pale light, each one the size of a building. "By the ancestors," whispered Hyejin. "What is that thing?" The ship's name was written in human letters across its side. Indomitable Spirit. Below that, symbols that must mean something terrible in the human language. The vessel bristled with gun batteries, missile tubes, and devices that Tae-min could not identify. It was not just a ship. It was a statement written in steel and fire. "Sir," said the communications officer, a nervous young male named Jun-ho, "they are sending us a message." "Put it through," Tae-min said. His voice stayed calm, but inside he felt like a small fish that had just seen a shark. The main screen flickered to life. A human face appeared, female and young-looking despite the silver markings on her uniform that spoke of high rank. Her skin was darker than most humans Tae-min had seen in the few recordings available. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. "This is Captain Su-jin of the Terra Defense Force vessel Indomitable Spirit," she said. Her voice was clear and direct. "You are in human space. State your business." Tae-min straightened his robes and activated the translator. "I am Commander Tae-min of the Galactic Council ship Harmony's Edge. We come in peace to conduct a diplomatic survey of this system." Captain Su-jin smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Welcome to New Busan Space, Commander. You are free to conduct your survey. Just don't interfere with our operations." The simple words hit Tae-min like a physical blow. In all his years of service, no species had ever spoken to a council representative this way. There were protocols, ceremonies, long discussions about rights and permissions. The humans were treating the council like just another government, not the supreme authority of galactic civilization. "Captain," Tae-min said carefully, "perhaps we should discuss proper procedures. The council has standard protocols for—" "Commander," Su-jin interrupted, "I don't know what your council usually does, but this is human space. We follow human law here. You want to look around? Go ahead. Just stay out of our way." The transmission ended. Tae-min stared at the blank screen, feeling like the universe had just shifted around him. In the silence of the bridge, he could hear his crew breathing hard. They had all heard the same thing he had. The humans did not care about the council. "Sir," Hyejin said quietly, "should we contact Council Command?" "Not yet," Tae-min replied. "First we observe. For the next 3 days, the Harmony's Edge conducted its survey while staying far from the human ship. Tae-min's crew used their most advanced sensors to study both the colony world and its massive guardian. What they found disturbed him more each hour. New Busan was not a struggling frontier world. It was a thriving colony with millions of inhabitants. Orbital factories processed raw materials from asteroid mines. Cargo ships moved in steady streams between the planet and various stations. The humans had built a complete civilization in a system that council records showed as empty just 50 years ago. But it was the indomitable spirit that truly worried Tae-min. His sensors could barely penetrate its hull, but what they did reveal was frightening. The ship's power output was enormous, far beyond anything in the Council fleet. Its weapons systems used technologies that Valari science could not fully understand. Most disturbing of all, it was not alone. 3 smaller human ships patrolled the system's edge. Each one was still larger than the Harmony's edge. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy most Council vessels. They moved with casual confidence, as if they owned this part of space, which Tae-min realized they did. On the 3rd day, something happened that changed everything. The ship's alarms began screaming as new contacts appeared on the sensors. 12 vessels had just dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Their energy signatures were unmistakable. Pirates. Kethmar raiders, by the look of them. Tae-min felt ice in his veins. The Kethmar were known throughout the galaxy as brutal killers. Their ships were fast and heavily armed. They had terrorized the Outer Rim for decades, and even Council fleets avoided fighting them unless absolutely necessary. "Commander," Junho called out, "the pirates are moving toward the human colony. Should we withdraw?" It was standard procedure. Council ships did not engage hostile forces unless specifically ordered to do so. The smart thing would be to retreat to a safe distance and file a report later. But Tae-min found himself curious about what the humans would do. "Maintain position," he said, "but be ready to run if things go bad." The indomitable spirit was already moving. The massive vessel turned with surprising grace, pointing its nose toward the approaching pirates. Tae-min watched the tactical display as the human ship began to accelerate. It was not running away. It was not calling for help. It was attacking. "Commander," Ye-jin said in a small voice, "they are contacting us." Captain Su-jin appeared on the screen again. She looked calm, as if 12 pirate ships were no more dangerous than a few insects. "Commander Tae-min," she said, "you might want to back off to about 50,000 kilometers. Things are about to get loud out here." "Captain," Tae-min said, "those are Kethmar raiders. Perhaps we should discuss withdrawal procedures." "Thanks for the warning," Su-jin said, "but we handle our own problems. Just keep clear and enjoy the show." The transmission ended again. Tae-min stared at the display as the indomitable spirit continued its advance toward 12 ships that had destroyed entire colonies. A single human vessel against a full pirate fleet. It should have been suicide. Instead, Tae-min was about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. The humans were not just another species seeking council protection. They were something new, something that made the old rules meaningless. As the Harmony's edge retreated to a safe distance, Tae-min realized that everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization was about to be proven wrong. The humans were not asking for permission to exist in this galaxy. They had already taken their place among the stars. The Kethmar pirates moved like wolves circling prey. Their 12 ships spread out in a formation that had destroyed countless colonies across the galaxy. Each vessel was a work of violent art, covered in spikes and painted with the skulls of their victims. The lead ship was massive, a destroyer that could punch through most planetary defenses. Commander Tae-min watched from the bridge of the Harmony's edge as the pirates closed in on New Busan. His crew was silent, waiting for the inevitable slaughter. The Kethmar were not known for mercy. They would kill everyone on the planet and take everything that was not nailed down. But the indomitable spirit was still moving toward them. "Sir," said Ye-jin, her voice shaking, "should we send a message to the colony? Warn them to evacuate?" Tae-min almost said yes. It was the right thing to do. The human colony had millions of people who were about to die. but something made him pause. Captain Su-jin had seemed so calm, so confident, like she knew something he did not. "Wait," he said. "Let us see what happens." The pirates were close enough now that their communications chatter filled the space. Around New Busan, they spoke in the harsh Kethmar language, making jokes about how much loot they would take, how many slaves they would capture. The translator made their words clear, and each one made Taemin's skin crawl. The lead pirate ship opened a channel to the indomitable spirit. A Kethmar captain appeared on the screen, his face covered in ritual scars and metal implants. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. "Human vessel, this is war leader Krex of the Bloodfang clan. Surrender now, and we might let some of your people live as slaves. Resist, and we will burn your world to ash." Captain Su-jin's response came quickly. Her voice was as calm as if she was ordering dinner. "War leader Krex, this is Captain Su-jin of the Terra Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to leave this system before we destroy you." The silence that followed was complete. Even the pirates seemed shocked by the human's response. Then Krex began to laugh, a sound like breaking glass. "You think your one ship can stand against the Bloodfang fleet? We have killed thousands of your kind human. We will add your bones to our—" The transmission cut off as the indomitable spirit opened fire. Taemin had seen fleet battles before. He had watched Council ships exchange laser fire with enemy vessels in careful, organized engagements that lasted for hours. This was nothing like that. This was murder. The human ship's main guns fired first. They were not lasers or plasma cannons, like most civilized species used. They were railguns, magnetic launchers that threw chunks of metal at incredible speeds. The projectiles were the size of buildings, moving so fast they bent space around them. The lead pirate destroyer simply vanished. One moment it was there, threatening the human colony. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of glowing debris. The railgun slug had hit it dead center and erased it from existence. But the indomitable spirit was just getting started. Missile pods along the human ship's hull opened like flowers of death. Hundreds of projectiles streamed out, each one guided by artificial intelligence that thought faster than any living brain. The missiles wove through space in impossible patterns, avoiding the pirates' desperate return fire with casual ease. The first wave of missiles reached the Kethmar fleet, and everything changed. Each warhead carried enough explosive power to crack a moon. When they detonated, 3 more pirate ships simply disappeared in balls of nuclear fire. "By the ancestors," whispered Jun-ho. "How much firepower does that ship carry?" Taemin could not answer. He was watching something that should not be possible. The indomitable spirit was fighting 12 ships at once and winning. Not just winning, dominating. The pirates' return fire sparked harmlessly against energy shields that seemed to laugh at their efforts. The human ship's point defense systems came online next. Thousands of laser turrets covered its hull like a metal skin, each one capable of tracking multiple targets. When the remaining pirates tried to launch their own missiles, the lasers swatted them out of space like insects. 2 more pirate ships died to the human railguns. The magnetic cannons fired again and again, each shot perfectly aimed despite the incredible distances involved. The pirates tried to dodge, but their ships were too slow and the human targeting systems too accurate. War leader Krex's voice filled. The communications channel, no longer confident but desperate. "All ships, focus fire on their engine section. Bring that thing down." The remaining 7 pirate vessels concentrated their attack on the indomitable spirit's rear. Plasma bolts and particle beams struck the human ship's shields in a light show that could be seen from the planet below. For a moment, it looked like the combined assault might actually damage the massive vessel. Then the human ship's secondary weapons joined the fight. Beam cannons emerged from hidden ports along the indomitable spirit's hull. Each one was larger than the main gun on most Council ships. When they fired, space itself seemed to scream. The coherent energy beams reached across the void and touched 3 pirate ships at once. The vessels did not explode. They simply melted, their hulls turning to vapor under the incredible heat. The crews inside died so quickly they probably never knew what happened. 4 pirate ships remained. Their captains were screaming orders, trying to coordinate some kind of retreat. But the human ship was faster than it looked. Despite its enormous size, the indomitable spirit moved like a hunting cat, cutting off escape routes and herding its prey into range of its guns. The railguns spoke again. 2 more pirate ships became expanding clouds of wreckage. That left only 2 vessels, including war leader Krex's command ship. The Kethmar captain was no longer trying to attack. He was begging. "Please," his voice cracked over the radio. "We surrender. We will leave and never return. Please, have mercy." Captain Sujin's response was cold as the space between stars. "You came here to murder civilians. You threatened to burn our world. Mercy is for those who deserve it." The final railgun salvos ended the battle. War leader Krex and his last companion died in twin flashes of light, their ships torn apart by magnetic fury. 12 minutes. That was how long the battle had lasted, from first shot to last. The most feared pirate fleet in the Outer Rim had been completely destroyed by a single human ship. The indomitable spirit had not even launched its fighter squadrons. Taman stared at the tactical display, where 12 red dots had marked the pirate fleet. Now there was nothing but empty space and cooling debris. His ship's sensors detected no life signs, no escape pods, no survivors. The humans had killed them all. "Commander," Hyojin said in a small voice, "what do we do now?" Before Taman could answer, Captain Sujin appeared on their screen again. She looked exactly the same as before the battle. No stress, no excitement, no signs that she had just participated in one of the most one-sided battles in galactic history. "Commander Taemin," she said, "sorry about the noise. The system is secure now. You can continue your survey whenever you are ready." "Captain," Taemin said, trying to keep his voice steady, "that was impressive. How did you—" "Pirates are a fact of life out here," Sujin interrupted. "We deal with them as needed. Standard procedure. Standard procedure." The human captain spoke as if destroying entire fleets was something they did every day. Maybe it was. "Captain, if I may ask," Taemin said, "how many ships like yours does Earth possess?" Sujin smiled, and this time it was definitely not friendly. "Enough," she said. "More than enough." The transmission ended, leaving Taemin alone with his thoughts and his terrified crew. He looked out at the debris field that had once been the Bloodfang clan. Somewhere in that expanding cloud of metal and vapor were the remains of ships that had terrorized the galaxy for decades. The humans had erased them in 12 minutes, and they called it standard procedure. Taemin realized that his mission had just changed completely. He was no longer conducting a simple diplomatic survey. He was gathering intelligence on a species that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council needed to know what they were dealing with. The humans were not just another developing civilization. They were something entirely new. Something that made the old rules meaningless. Something that needed to be understood before it was too late. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from 47 species filled the great chamber on the capital world of Prima Stellaris. The air hummed with worried conversations in dozens of languages as delegates tried to make sense of what they had heard. High Counselor Yun Seo stood at the center of the chamber, her tall form casting shadows in the soft light. She was old even by her species standards, and had guided the Council through 3 major wars and countless smaller conflicts. But she had never faced anything like this. "Fellow counselors," she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. "We are here because Commander Taemin of the Valari has brought us disturbing news about the species known as humans." The chamber fell silent. Every being present knew that emergency sessions were rare. For one to be called about a single species was almost unheard of. Commander Taemin rose from his seat in the Valari section. He looked tired, like a person who had seen something that haunted his dreams. In his hands was a data crystal containing sensor recordings from the Harmony's edge. "Honored counselors," he said, "I have returned from human space with evidence that changes everything we thought. We knew about this species." He activated the crystal and holographic displays sprang to life throughout the chamber. The recording showed the indomitable spirit in all its terrible glory, floating in space like a metal moon. Gasps echoed from every section as the delegates saw the size of the human vessel. "This ship is 15 kilometers long," Taemin explained. "It carries weapons that dwarf anything in our combined fleets. And this recording shows what it can do." The battle began to play out before their eyes. The delegates watched in stunned silence as 12 Kethmar pirate ships approached New Busan. Many of them knew the reputation of the Bloodfang clan. Some had lost colonies to their raids. Then the indomitable spirit opened fire. The chamber erupted in chaos as the recording showed the complete destruction of the pirate fleet. Delegates shouted in disbelief, demanding that the recording be verified. Others sat in shocked silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Ambassador Dal Su of the Traxan Empire was the first to recover his voice. He was a large being covered in scales that changed color with his emotions. Right now, they were showing deep purple, the color of fear. "This must be some kind of mistake," he declared. "No single ship could possess such firepower. The energy requirements alone would need a reactor the size of a small moon." "The recordings are verified," Taemin replied calmly. "Valari sensor technology does not lie. Every detail has been confirmed multiple times." Defense Minister Ji-won of the Corvani stood up, her forearms gesturing aggressively. The Corvani were a warrior species, and Ji-won had commanded their fleets for over 50 years. She understood military power better than anyone in the chamber. "Even if this recording is accurate," she said, "it shows only one ship. One vessel, no matter how powerful, cannot threaten the combined might of the Council." "That would be true," Taemin said quietly, "if it were only one ship." The recording changed, showing new intelligence reports that had been gathered from across the galaxy. Human ships had been spotted in dozens of systems. Trading vessels, colony ships, and military escorts. All of them were larger and more advanced than anything the Council possessed. "We have confirmed the existence of at least 40 human warships. Of similar size," Taemin continued. "Our intelligence suggests there may be many more." The chamber fell silent again. 40 ships like the Indomitable Spirit would be enough to challenge most Council member fleets individually. Together, they represented a force that could reshape the entire galaxy. High Counselor Yoon Seo raised her hand for silence. "Commander, Taemin, what is your assessment of human intentions?" "They are expanding rapidly across dozens of star systems," Taemin replied. They have established colonies, trade routes, and defensive positions without seeking council permission. Most disturbing of all, they do not seem to care about our authority. The recording showed Captain Su Jin's casual dismissal of council protocols. Her words echoed through the chamber. I don't know what your council usually does, but this is human space. Trade Representative Min Jung of the Zentari Consortium spoke next. The Zentari were merchants above all else, and they understood economic power as well as anyone. Our trade monitors have detected human commerce with 17 non-council species, she said. They are creating alternative economic networks that bypass our trade regulations entirely. How is that possible? Demanded Ambassador Dalsu. The Council controls most galactic trade routes. Not anymore, Min Jung replied grimly. Human ships are faster and more efficient than ours. They can reach systems in days that take our vessels weeks to access. Several species have already begun preferring human trade partners over council-approved merchants. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. The council's power rested on two foundations: military superiority and economic control. The humans were challenging both at the same time. General Sung Ho of the Corvani Defense Fleet stood up, his scarred face twisted with anger. Then we must act now, before they become too strong, a preemptive strike while we still have numerical advantage. With what? Asked Commander Tai Min. My ship's weapons could not even scratch the paint on that human vessel. How many council ships would you sacrifice to destroy one of theirs? 10, 20, 50. The mathematics were brutal and undeniable. Even if the council could destroy the human fleet, the cost would be enormous. And there was no guarantee they would win such a conflict. Defense Minister Ji-won was studying the tactical data with growing alarm. Their point defense systems alone would devastate our missile fleets. And these railgun weapons. I have never seen anything with such destructive power. What about their homeworld? Suggested Ambassador Dalsu. Surely Earth itself is vulnerable to blockade or bombardment. Tae-min shook his head. Earth is protected by at least 12 ships of similar class to the one I encountered. Possibly more. Any assault on their home system would be suicide. The debate raged for hours as delegates tried to find some solution to the human problem. Military options were discussed and discarded as too risky. Economic sanctions would be meaningless against a species that was creating its own trade networks. Diplomatic isolation was impossible when the humans clearly did not care about council approval. Trade Representative Min Jung presented the most disturbing report of all. Our economic analysts have run projections based on current human expansion rates. Within 10 years, they could control 30% of galactic trade. Within 20 years, they could make the Council economically irrelevant. That cannot be allowed to happen, declared General Sung Ho. We are the rightful authority in this galaxy. We have maintained peace and order for 1,000 years. Have we? Asked a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. All eyes turned to see who had spoken. It was Ambassador Kyung Ho of the Vitharan Republic, a small species that rarely spoke in council sessions. He was known for his careful thinking and deep understanding of galactic history. Have we truly maintained peace? He continued. The Kethmar pirates have terrorized the Outer Rim for decades, and we have done nothing to stop them. The humans destroyed an entire pirate fleet in 12 minutes. Perhaps they are providing the kind of protection we have failed to deliver. The chamber erupted in angry protests, but Ambassador Kyung-ho continued speaking. Look at the species that are allying with humans. Most of them have never been offered council membership. We have ignored them for centuries, and now they have found someone who treats them as equals. High Counselor Yoon Seo raised her hand for silence once more. The old leader looked tired, as if the weight of galactic civilization was pressing down on her shoulders. The question before us is simple, she said. Do we attempt to destroy this human threat while we still can, or do we try to find some way to coexist with them? The vote that followed split the council down the middle. 23 species supported immediate military action. 19 favored attempting diplomatic accommodation. 5 abstained, unable to choose between the two options. The council charter required consensus for major military operations. Without it, coordinated action was impossible. As the session ended in chaos and confusion, High Counselor Yoon Seo realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The humans had not conquered anyone or destroyed any council fleets. They had simply offered an alternative to council authority. And that alternative was proving more attractive than anyone had expected. Standing alone in the empty chamber after the other delegates had left, Yoon Seo stared at the holographic display. Still showing the human ship, the indomitable spirit hung in space like a promise and a threat combined. The age of council dominance was ending, not through war or conquest, but through simple irrelevance. The humans were showing the galaxy that there was another way to organize. Civilization, and once that door was opened, it could never be closed again. The diplomatic complex in New Geneva was a monument to human ambition. Glass and steel towers reached toward the sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of Earth's sun in patterns that seemed to shift and dance. Gardens filled with plants from a dozen worlds created paths between the buildings, showing how humans could make beauty from the practical business of governing. High Counselor Yoon Seo stood at the window of her guest quarters, watching the bustling activity below. Humans moved with purpose through the complex, many of them carrying data pads or speaking into communication devices. They looked busy and confident, like people who knew exactly what they were doing. It was very different from the careful ceremony of council diplomacy. The human delegation had assembled in the main conference room, a space that was both impressive and intimidating. The walls were covered with star charts showing human expansion across the galaxy. Each red dot represented a colony or outpost, and there were far more of them than the council had realized. Ambassador Hyun Woo entered the room with the easy confidence that seemed to mark all human leaders. He was younger than most diplomats Yoon Seo had worked with, but his eyes held the sharp intelligence of someone who had already reshaped the rules of galactic politics. Behind him came Admiral Bo-Ram of the Terra Defense Force. She wore a simple blue uniform marked with silver stars, but her presence filled the room like a physical force. Yoon Seo had read the reports about human military capability. Looking at Admiral Bo-Ram, she could believe every word. The third member of the human team was Director Minho of the Colonial Administration. He carried himself like a man who was used to making decisions that affected millions of lives. His datapad probably contained plans for expanding human territory even further. High Counselor Yun Seo, Ambassador Hyun-woo said, offering a slight bow that was polite without being servile. Welcome to Earth. We appreciate your willingness to travel so far for these discussions. Ambassador Hyun-woo, Yun Seo replied, trying to match his tone. The Council hopes these talks will lead to better understanding between our peoples. Understanding is always good, Hyun-woo said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. But before we begin, I want to make something clear. Terra recognizes no authority over human space or human citizens. We are here to discuss coexistence, not subordination. The words hit the Council delegation like cold water. Yun Seo had expected some resistance to Council authority, but this was a complete rejection of everything the galactic government represented. Ambassador, she said carefully, the Council has maintained order in this galaxy for over 1,000 years. Our protocols exist to prevent conflicts and ensure peaceful development for all species. Your protocols, Admiral Boram said quietly, allowed pirates to terrorize the Outer Rim for decades. They let innocent people die while you debated proper procedures in your fancy chambers. The accusation was blunt and painful, because it was largely true. The Council had known about the Kethmar raids, but had been unable to organize an effective response. Too many member species had their own interests to protect. The Council faces many challenges, Yun Seo said. Coordinating the needs of 47 different species requires careful consideration of all factors. While people die, Director Minho added. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. We prefer more direct solutions. Ambassador Hyun-woo activated a holographic display that showed the human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Each one was marked with population figures, industrial capacity, and defensive strength. The Terra Colonial Authority has established settlements in 37 star systems, he said. Each colony is self-governing, but connected to our larger civilization through trade, communication, and mutual defense agreements. Without Council approval, Yun Seo pointed out. We do not need your approval, Hyun-woo replied simply. Your laws do not apply to us because we never agreed to them. The statement was so matter-of-fact that it took a moment for its full implications to sink in. The humans were not rebelling against Council authority. They were simply ignoring it. But the Council represents galactic civilization, protested Ambassador Jian-woo, Yun Seo's chief aide. All spacefaring species must eventually join if they wish to participate in galactic society. Admiral Boram laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Galactic society? You mean the club that excludes more species than it includes? The organization that lets pirates run wild while debating the proper color for ceremonial robes? We have been trading with 17 non-council species for over 2 years, Director Minho added. They seem to manage just fine without your membership requirements. The human delegation presented their demands with the same casual confidence that Captain Su Jin had shown when facing down pirates. They wanted formal recognition of all human territorial claims. They insisted on the right to expand further, without council oversight. Most shocking of all, they demanded equal representation in any galactic governing body. Equal representation? Yunseo asked. You are one species among dozens. The Council operates on the principle of gradual integration over centuries of monitored development. We are not interested in gradual anything, Ambassador Hyunwoo said. We have already developed our own systems of government, defense, and trade. We are offering to work with the Council as equals, not as subordinates. Admiral Boram leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. Let me make our military situation clear, High Counselor. The Terra Defense Force currently operates 43. Titan-class dreadnoughts like the one your commander Taemin encountered. We have 12 more under construction and plans for 50 additional vessels. The numbers hit the Council delegation like physical blows. 43 ships like the Indomitable Spirit represented more firepower than most Council fleets combined. That is impressive, Yunseo managed. But surely Earth cannot maintain such a massive military force indefinitely. We are not just Earth anymore, Director Minho said. Our colonies produce raw materials from asteroid mining operations that dwarf anything the Council has ever attempted. Our automated manufacturing systems can build ships faster than most. Species can crew them. He activated another display showing human industrial capacity. The numbers were staggering. Human colonies were producing more steel, electronics, and processed materials than several Council core worlds combined. How? Is this possible? Ambassador Jianwu asked. Your species has only been spacefaring for a few decades. We learn quickly, Admiral Boram said with a predator's smile. And we do not waste time on ceremony when there is work to be done. The negotiations continued for 3 days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The humans were not asking for permission to exist in the galaxy. They were informing the Council of decisions they had already made. On the final day, Ambassador Hyunwoo presented the Council delegation with a proposal that redefined galactic politics. The Terra Colonial Authority was willing to sign mutual defense and trade agreements with any species that wanted them. These agreements would be between equals, with no requirements for cultural adaptation or political subordination. What you are describing, Yunseo said slowly, would create an alternative to the Council itself. No, Hyunwoo replied. We are creating an improvement on the Council, a system based on mutual benefit rather than imposed authority. The human proposals were elegant in their simplicity. Any species could join the Terra Accord by signing a basic agreement promising peaceful relations and open trade. There were no membership fees, no cultural requirements, and no long probationary periods. Most importantly, there was no central authority with the power to override local decisions. You are asking us to abandon everything the Council represents, Yunseo said. We are asking you to evolve, Admiral Boram corrected. The galaxy has changed, High Counselor. The question is whether the Council will change with it or become irrelevant. As the Council delegation prepared to return to Prima Stellaris, Director Minho handed Yunseo a data crystal containing detailed proposals for reforming galactic governance. The plans were comprehensive, practical, and would essentially end the Council's role as the supreme authority in civilized space. "Consider our offer carefully," Ambassador Hyun-woo said as they prepared to leave. "We would prefer to work with the Council rather than around it, but we will expand our influence either way." Standing on the observation deck of her ship as Earth fell away behind them, Yoon Seo realized that the humans had already won this conflict without firing a shot. They had offered the galaxy something the Council never could, a choice. And once species began choosing the human alternative, the old order would crumble not through war, but through simple preference. The age of Council dominance was ending, replaced by something humans called voluntary cooperation. It sounded almost naive in its simplicity, but after seeing human ships in action, Yoon Seo was beginning to think that simple might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The Council chamber had never seen anything like the chaos that erupted after High Counselor Yoon Seo returned from Earth. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages, their voices creating a storm of noise that echoed off the ancient walls. Some species were already walking out, their representatives declaring that they would not be part of whatever decision came next. The Great Schism, as historians would later call it, began the moment Yoon Seo finished reading the human proposals. The Terra Accord offered something the Council had never provided: immediate equality for any species willing to sign a simple agreement. General Seung-ho of the Corvani was the first to stand, his scarred face twisted with rage. "This is an insult to everything we have built. The humans dare to offer us terms as if we were equals." Behind him, 12 other species rose in support. The Traxan, the Mordani, the fierce Kelvari, all warrior races that had built their power on military strength and council backing. They saw the human proposals as a direct threat to their authority. "We should have struck first," General Seung-ho continued, his 4 arms gesturing aggressively. "Now we face an enemy that has had time to prepare. But it is not too late. Combined, our fleets still outnumber theirs." "Do they?" asked Commander Taemin quietly from the Valari section. "How many ships are you willing to lose to destroy one human dreadnought? Because I can tell you from personal experience, it will be many." The chamber fell silent as delegates remembered the recording of the indomitable spirit destroying 12 pirate ships in minutes. The mathematics were brutal but undeniable. Even if the Council could win a war against humanity, the cost would be enormous. Ambassador Kyung-ho of the Vetharan Republic stood slowly, his small form dwarfed by the larger species around him. "Perhaps we should ask a different question. Why are we so afraid of treating humans as equals?" "Because they are not our equals," snarled Ambassador Dalsu of the Traxan Empire. "The Council has maintained order for 1,000 years. We do not need upstart humans telling us how to govern the galaxy." "Have we truly maintained order?" Kyung-ho asked. "Or have we simply maintained our own power while letting problems fester at the edges of our territory?" Trade Representative Min-jung of the Zentari Consortium activated her data display, showing economic projections that made several delegates gasp. "While we debate, human trade networks are expanding rapidly. 3 more species signed agreements with them just this week." The numbers were staggering. Human merchant ships were moving freely through space that had once been Council-controlled. They offered better prices, faster delivery, and protection from pirates that the Council had never been able to provide. The Altarian Federation just canceled their trade agreements with us, Minjung continued. They say human merchants are more reliable and charge lower fees. Then we blockade the humans, General Sung Ho declared. Cut off their trade routes and force them to negotiate. With what ships? Asked Defense Minister Ji Won of her own Corvani species. She had been studying the tactical reports for weeks, and her conclusions were troubling. Our fastest vessels are half the speed of human cargo ships. We cannot blockade something we cannot catch. The chamber erupted in arguments as the delegates realized the full scope of the problem. The humans were not just militarily superior. They were economically competitive and politically attractive to species that had been ignored by the Council for centuries. Commander Tai Min stood again, his voice cutting through the noise. I have spent the last month interviewing captains who have encountered human ships. The pattern is always the same. Humans offer partnership, not domination. They protect trade routes the Council has abandoned. They treat smaller species as equals, rather than subjects. Propaganda, General Sung Ho spat. They are trying to divide us. Are they? Asked Ambassador Kyung Ho. Or are they simply offering what we should have provided all along? The debate raged for days as intelligence reports continued to arrive. Human expansion was accelerating, but it was not the kind of aggressive conquest the Council had expected. Instead, it was voluntary cooperation on a scale that had never been seen before. The Hegemonic Alliance, a group of 6 species that had never been offered Council membership, signed a collective defense agreement with Terra. The Freelance Worlds, dozens of independent colonies scattered across the Rim, declared their support for the Terra Accord. Even some Council member species were sending unofficial delegations to human space. We are losing control, admitted High Counselor Yoon Seo during a private meeting with her senior advisors. Not through military defeat, but through simple preference. The vote, when it finally came, split the Council exactly as everyone had feared. 23 species supported immediate military action against humanity. 19 favored attempting diplomatic accommodation. 5 abstained, paralyzed by the impossible choice between war and irrelevance. Without consensus, the Council Charter made coordinated military action impossible. The warrior species were free to act on their own, but they would do so without the full backing of galactic civilization. General Sung Ho was furious. We have the strength to end this threat, but you choose to surrender without a fight. We choose to avoid a war we might not win, replied Commander Tai Min. And even if we did win, what would we rule over? Ashes and hatred. The final blow came when Ambassador Yeon Su of the Kalan Republic stood to make an announcement that stunned the chamber into silence. The Kalan Republic formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, she said. We will be signing the Terra Accord within the week. The Kalan were not a major military power, but they controlled some of the most important trade routes in the galaxy. Their defection was like a dam breaking. Within hours, 6 more species announced their intention to leave the Council and join the growing Terra Alliance. High Counselor Yoon Seo watched her 1,000-year-old institution crumble before her eyes. The humans had not conquered the Council through force. They had simply offered something better, and species were choosing freedom over security. "What do we do now?" asked Ambassador Jian Wu as the chamber emptied around them. Yun Seo looked at the star charts showing human expansion across the galaxy. Red dots marked Terra colonies, blue indicated allied species, and green showed trade routes that connected them all. It was a network of voluntary cooperation that spanned hundreds of light years. "We adapt," she said quietly, "or we become irrelevant." In the weeks that followed, the schism deepened. The warrior species formed their own alliance, determined to resist human expansion through military force. The moderate species tried to maintain neutrality while secretly negotiating with both sides. The merchant species openly declared their preference for human trade networks. But the most telling sign of change came from an unexpected source. 3 Kethmar clans, the same species that had terrorized the galaxy for decades, approached human authorities asking for protection from their own kind. Captain Su Jin's response became legend throughout the galaxy. "Anyone willing to give up piracy and follow galactic law is welcome under Terra protection." Within a month, former pirates were flying escort missions for human cargo ships, their vessels repainted with Terra Defense Force markings. It was the ultimate symbol of how completely the humans had changed the rules of galactic civilization. The Council still existed, but its authority was now limited to the species that chose to remain members. For the first time in 1,000 years, membership was truly voluntary, because there was finally an alternative. High Counselor Yun Seo stood, alone in the empty chamber, looking at the holographic display that showed the new galactic map. The old order was gone, replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history. A civilization based on choice rather than force. The humans had not conquered anyone. They had simply proven that there was a better way to organize galactic society. And once that proof existed, the old ways could never return. The age of council dominance was over. The age of voluntary cooperation had begun. And despite her sadness at watching her life's work crumble, Yun Seo had to admit that the galaxy might be better for it. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy looked like a completely different place. Terra Station hung in space above Earth like a metal flower, its multiple arms reaching out to embrace ships from dozens of different species. The massive orbital platform served as the diplomatic heart of what had become known as the Terra-Aligned Coalition. Ambassador Hyunwoo, now elevated to Secretary General of Coalition Affairs, stood in the station's central observation deck watching the traffic flow around them. Valari bioships pulsed with organic light as they docked alongside angular Zentari freighters. Former Kethmar raiders, their hulls painted with Terra Defense Force markings, escorted cargo vessels through the busy space lanes. It was a sight that would have been impossible just a year ago. "Secretary General," said his aide, a young human. "Woman named So Young. The morning reports are ready." Hyunwoo accepted the data pad with a smile. The numbers still amazed him. 31 species had now signed the Terra Accord, creating an alliance that spanned nearly 200 star systems. Trade volume had increased by 400%. Pirate attacks in Coalition space had dropped to almost nothing. But the most remarkable statistic was the simplest one. 0 species had asked to leave the Coalition. The same could not be said for the old Galactic Council. 3 more members had withdrawn just this week, bringing the total to 18 defections in 6 months. High Counselor Yoon Seo was trying to hold together an organization that was bleeding members faster than she could replace them. Sir, So Young continued, Admiral Bo-Ram is requesting permission to launch the new fleet exercises. Hyun Woo nodded. The Coalition Defense Force had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Human Titan-class dreadnoughts now served alongside Valari biocruisers, Zentari assault carriers, and ships from a dozen other species. Each vessel brought unique capabilities that made the combined fleet stronger than the sum of its parts. Admiral Bo-Ram commanded this unprecedented force from her flagship, the Terra's Promise. The newest Titan-class dreadnought incorporated technological improvements shared by Coalition allies, making it even more powerful than the ship that had first stunned Commander Tae-min. But the real strength of the Coalition was not in its weapons. It was in the voluntary nature of its cooperation. Secretary General, came a familiar voice from behind him. Hyun-Woo turned to see Commander Tae-min approaching, wearing the new Coalition uniform that marked him as a liaison officer. Commander, Hyun-Woo said warmly, how are our new allies adjusting? Tae-min smiled, something that had become much more common since he joined the Coalition. The Mordani delegation is still surprised that we actually mean what we say about equality. They keep waiting for us to impose our own cultural standards on them. It was a common reaction. Most species had lived under council authority for so long that they could not imagine any other form of galactic government. The idea that they could maintain their own laws, customs, and territorial integrity while still being part of a larger alliance was revolutionary. And the trade negotiations? Hyun-Woo asked. Proceeding smoothly, Tae-min replied. The Mordani have some of the best mineral extraction technology in the galaxy. In exchange for access to our shipping networks, they are willing to share their mining techniques with all Coalition members. It was exactly the kind of mutual benefit that made the Coalition work. Unlike the Council's rigid hierarchy, the Terra Accord allowed each species to contribute what they did best while gaining access to capabilities they lacked. The communication system activated, and Captain Soo-jin's face appeared on the main screen. She had been promoted to Fleet Admiral, but still commanded the indomitable spirit on patrol missions throughout Coalition space. Secretary General, she said, we have a situation in the Kepler sector. 3 Council warships are approaching. The hegemonic alliance border. Hyun-Woo frowned. The Council had been making increasingly aggressive moves as its authority crumbled. Some of the warrior species seemed determined to prove their superiority through military force, even if it meant starting a war they could not win. Are they violating Coalition space? He asked. Not yet, Admiral Soo-jin replied. But they are conducting what they call training exercises right on the border. The hegemonic alliance is requesting Coalition protection. It was exactly the kind of situation the Terra Accord had been designed to handle. The hegemonic alliance was a group of 6 species that had been ignored by the Council for centuries. Now they were full Coalition members with the same rights. and protections as Earth itself. Send the Fifth Fleet to provide escort services, Hyun-woo ordered. Make it clear that Coalition space is under Coalition protection. The response was swift and decisive. Within hours, a combined task force of human, Valari, and Zentari ships was moving toward the disputed border. The Council vessels, faced with overwhelming firepower, withdrew without incident. It was a pattern that had repeated itself dozens of times across the galaxy. The Council still had military strength, but it was scattered and uncoordinated. The Coalition, despite being newer and smaller, acted with unity of purpose that made it far more effective. Director Min Ho of the Colonial Administration appeared on another screen, reporting from the edge of Coalition space where new colonies were being established every month. Secretary General, he said, the Vanguard expedition has identified 12 more suitable worlds for colonization. The Callan Republic has offered to provide terraforming expertise in exchange for mineral rights. On 3 of them. Hyun-woo nodded approvingly. Coalition expansion was not the aggressive conquest that many had feared. Instead, it was careful development that benefited everyone involved. New colonies meant new markets, new resources, and new opportunities for all member species. What about the remnant pirates? He asked. Still coming in, Director Minho replied, with satisfaction. 2 more Kethmar clans have requested sanctuary this week. They are willing to give up raiding in exchange for legitimate work as security escorts. It was perhaps the most remarkable achievement of the Coalition. The pirates that had terrorized the galaxy for decades were voluntarily laying down their weapons and joining civilized society. All it had taken was offering them a better alternative than a life of violence. The transformation of the Kethmar was a powerful symbol of how the Coalition was changing the galaxy. Instead of trying to destroy their enemies, humans offered them the chance to become allies. It was a radical approach. That would have been impossible under the old council system. As the day continued, reports arrived from across Coalition space. Trade volume was up another 20%. 3 more species had requested membership negotiations. The first joint technological development project had produced a new type of faster-than-light drive that would benefit all members. But the most significant news came from an unexpected source. High Counselor Yoon Seo herself had arrived at Terra Station, requesting a private meeting with Secretary General Hyun-woo. They met in a small conference room overlooking the busy docking bays. Yoon Seo looked older than her years, worn down by the collapse of everything she had spent her life building. Secretary General, she said quietly, I have come to discuss the future of the Galactic Council. Hyun-woo studied her carefully. What did you have in mind, High Counselor? Dissolution, she replied simply. The Council is finished. We both know it. The question is whether we can salvage something useful from the wreckage. It was a stunning admission from the leader of galactic civilization. The Council had ruled for 1,000 years, but 6 months of human influence had made it irrelevant. What are you proposing? Hyun-woo asked. Integration, Yoon Seo said. The remaining Council members would like to negotiate entry into the Terra Accord, not as conquered subjects, but as equal partners. Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair, considering the implications. If the Council formally dissolved, and its members joined the coalition, it would mark the end of one era and the beginning of another. The terms would be the same as for any other species, he said finally. Equal representation, mutual benefit, voluntary cooperation. I understand, Yunseo replied, and I accept those terms. 3 months later, the last session of the Galactic Council was held in the same chamber where the organization had been, founded 1,000 years earlier. High Counselor Yunseo stood before the empty seats of species that had already left, addressing the 26 delegates who remained. Today we end one chapter of galactic history and begin another, she said. The Galactic Council formally dissolves, and its member species join the Terra-aligned coalition as equal partners. The vote was unanimous. There was no longer any alternative. Admiral Boram watched the ceremony from the bridge of the Terra's Promise, surrounded by ships from dozens of species that had once been enemies or strangers. Commander Tae-min stood beside her, wearing the coalition uniform with pride. "Did you ever imagine it would end like this?" he asked. "No," Admiral Boram replied honestly. "We expected to fight for our place in the galaxy. Instead, we convinced everyone to join us voluntarily." On the main screen, Terra Station glowed against the stars, its lights representing a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on choice rather than force, on cooperation rather than domination, on the simple idea that different species could work together as equals.